Welcome back to Mingus on Tech. It's March 9th, 2017. I'm Ken Mingus, Executive News Editor with Computer World. I'm here with Matt Hamblin, Computer World's Matt Hamblin, who is just back from Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. We're going to talk about all things mobile today, smartphones, smart cities, and what's going on. I should note also that we're on Facebook Live, so if you've got questions, please pop them into the comment section and we'll see if we can answer them. We're also on YouTube Live. Got questions, same thing. So Matt, Barcelona, Mobile World Congress, lots going on this year. Any main theme that emerged from the show that you can tease out for us?
Yeah, there were some main themes. One of the big trends with those is to the Chinese makers.
Is that Huawei?
Huawei would be one of 25 manufacturers based in China that make smartphones. So,
okay.
And they are third in the world now, and that's kind of a big deal.
That was quick, right? Because you said in one of your stories that just a couple of years ago they were still trying to tell people who they were and how to pronounce their name.
Yeah, they had people lecturing you on the pronunciation in the booth at Mobile World Congress.
Okay.
And I remember that vividly because I have trouble with that. So anyway, and you know, they're 10th in the U.S.
Okay.
And the disparity.
But they're having trouble gaining ground in the U.S., right? Isn't that one of the things? I mean, they would like to, you know, to do better in the States, but they haven't really been able to sort of duplicate their worldwide success here in the U.S.
Well, it's a complex reason. Some of the analysts have pointed out that there are copyright laws that Apple and Samsung are willing to sue over. You know, Samsung and Apple are the biggest in the U.S. and the biggest in the world. So, but Huawei started out, according to the analysts I've interviewed, you know, by selling cheaper phones, and then they came out with this P10 and the P10 Plus this time. They're in the 650 above range.
Hey, Matt, can you get a little closer to the mic for us? Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
We can't hear you.
Okay,
That's good.
Go on or start over?
Oh, no, keep going.
Yep.
Anyway,
So,
the P10.
yeah,
P10?
no, they're in the high end, and they're not going to be sold by the carriers in the U.S., but you can get it unlocked. You know, it might work on the AT&T network. I didn't check out every band, but it's you know, it's quite a good phone. It's a beautiful phone. I mean, it's this, you know, brushed metal, and it has a great size. It's got these dual cameras in the back that kind of imitate what is going on with the portrait mode in the iPhone.
In the iPhone
7 Plus, right?
Yep.
And I think you know, so they're doing the innovative things. They sold the Mate 9 in the U.S., and so that's kind of knocked them out of selling this one, and that was only announced 3 months ago, I think. So anyway, the point is they are here, but it's questionable how big they would become. They have set a goal to be the #1 phone maker in the world in 5 years, and I've heard people say that's not unrealistic.
Well, I was just going to say, if they've gone from almost nowhere 2 or 3 years ago to #3 worldwide,
yeah,
you know, they're obviously on the right track.
Yeah.
So, do you know who's 1 and 2?
Apple and Samsung.
In that order?
No, last quarter Apple was first.
Yep.
But just by the barest amount.
Okay.
And then, but it's always been Samsung. I remember Android is 85% of the world.
Right.
So, you know, Apple's known as a high-end maker, and they're really big in the U.S., but, you know, I mean, it's challenging for all of these, for them to be in China and India. I mean, they've done it, but it's challenging.
It's interesting. One of the stories, in fact, it was the story you had this week, which I thought was really interesting. You know, when you think about Mobile World Congress, you're thinking about phones and you know, 5G and things like that. But something you had brought out in this story was that phones are so much now about the cameras that are built into them. In fact, there was one, I think it was the Sony phone you mentioned, had a rear-facing camera that was, I think, 19 megapixels and could shoot at like 960. What it was basically was 1/32 of real time, so for super slow motion.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fascinating, and it's interesting that, you know, I mean, obviously you see this every year when Apple rolls out the iPhone. They're always talking about the camera and the portrait mode and the things that they can do. Is that something that we're going to see continuing as a trend? That
no, they do surveys. I mean, these guys do so much market research before they make a phone, or before once they're making it, and then they refine it before it comes out. But yeah, cameras are well, in the U.S. and in Western Europe, where people spend more on their phones, they're looking for size, brand, and cameras like third.
Oh, really? Okay.
And you know, like size of screen, resolution of screen, but size of the like you know, the form factor, narrower and longer is kind of what we saw this year. So that's the Sony X2 Premium is what that is.
That's the one.
Yeah, 135 angle, you know, and it's got the dual. It's got the dual. I got a heads up.
Yep.
Anyway,
Do we have a question by chance?
Yeah, we have a question about 5G network. I was just waiting for you guys to wrap up.
Okay, well, that's fine. We'll get to that in just a second. Anyway, so back to the cameras real quick.
yeah,
So-
it's dual cameras in the rear. Like you said, it's a big deal, and you know, this is the reason the camera is something that they can sell. Is that
It's something people can get their hands around rather than just some, arcane chip inside or some new feature.
Right.
You know what the camera can do. They can show the photos.
if they even introduce one new feature like portrait mode, that's something that you can actually pick up and see in the store
Yeah.
or on Lightning. But so and it's hard for me to judge. Okay, my processor's running 10% faster. I mean, that's
Everybody
hard.
wants faster processors, but prove it. When you're using your phone.
Or even the sound quality. You know,
Yeah.
so that's hard to prove. So yeah, they were a big deal. I mean, there were tons of Chinese manufacturers with big booths at this show. Oppo, all these other ones.
Are these Chinese manufacturers also looking to break into the U.S. market?
I
or-
doubt it, and
Okay.
and mostly it's because they're doing the middle and lower tier cost phones. So.
Okay, let's pop over to 5G as a topic real quick because I had mentioned that, and it's one of those things that, to me at least, seems to be sort of perpetually. It's about to roll out. They're doing some tests. It's gonna, So what's the question we have, Doug?
I think it was just more of a generic question about
Oh, you're
5G
getting a live
and where phones are going.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Well, there's 5G in the world, and then there's 5G in the U.S. And
Okay, what's the difference?
I mean, well, what we care about is what's in the U.S. because of our audience, because I'm here. But I think the big players are going to be Verizon and AT&T.
Okay.
I mean, they have
which makes sense.
90% of the 80% of the market.
Yeah.
So we have Verizon saying they're going to go with their non-standard approach, and they're all introducing trials. I think Verizon has 2 cities, and AT&T has 11 cities. AT&T is going to hang on for a more the standards-approved approach.
Okay.
Which, I mean, I'm not going to say one is better than the other. I mean, if you already a Verizon customer, you won't be switching to the other side.
Just to make sure you're getting the standard 5G rather than the non-standard 5G that Verizon will have.
but there is an incredible speed increase. I mean, the promise is great, but 2020, I mean, you could have three more jobs by the time this comes out. I mean,
Right.
you could be working for them by then. I mean, so
No, I
No,
like
wait,
where
no.
I am. Wait,
No,
what?
it's not
What
about
do you
that.
know that I don't know?
It's
Where am I
not-
going?
I'm talking about our listeners.
Got
so
it. No, I
anyway,
understand.
this is. It's really great to be on top of what they're trying to do with it, but it's off in the future still.
It's still several. So maybe we should just define real quickly. I mean, so right now most everything is 4G, LTE.
Yeah,
4G?
and there are improvements on the LGG Advanced, and that's what, remember, Verizon was talking about, took them to the top. But the truth is, all of these independent surveys show that all 4 major carriers are doing well in the U.S.
in terms of bandwidth, connectivity.
whether the call goes through, whether the text goes through, the speed of the data. So there's, many criteria, 6 criteria. I mean, some of the testers do millions of tests a year. So they're going into cities. And so the real story is a financial one. The growth in revenue from people buying service, wireless service, is static. I mean, it's growing, but it's not what it was. So they have to find other things to do. And
to entice you to spend more money for theoretically better bandwidth or faster download
Well,
speeds.
and they'll have that. And it's just they spend billions of dollars on this stuff. So it's not small. But, both AT&T and Verizon, this is kind of a segue into another topic that came up, was they had in their booths all the things that they're doing that are these little new revenue generators. Like
Okay.
they're pushing the fact that they're content makers now. Remember?
Yeah,
AOL,
everybody
Verizon.
is. It seems like.
Okay, well, so if other things are static and you're not growing at 20%, 2%, 5%. Then they'll say, okay, we're going to do content. And AOL had, Katie Couric on a big screen. I mean, it was right in their booth. I mean, they were showing things like they're doing smart city stuff too.
So is the content that they're creating, is that smart city stuff, or is it something else?
No, that's separate. It's separate.
Okay.
I just meant that they're trying all sorts of new things, and these are our guys here in the U.S.
Yep.
I mean, everybody, but especially them.
Okay. One of the questions that comes up, because obviously when you're at MWC, it's a global, worldwide sort of audience. You've got all these manufacturers, many of them we've never heard of. And yet you've got a big player like Apple, which just isn't there.
No, I'm sure they're there, and I'm sure they meet with customers. And this is a great, people make deals at these shows. This is why they do them, because then if they have an Asian customer, they come to Spain, and then they don't have to fly over, or whatever. Yeah, and this is really why a lot of vendors are there. I mean, there's a ton of press. It's really impressive. I mean, literally, I'd say 2,000 press were trying to get into the Samsung thing.
Well, and there was it Huawei or something? There was
Yes,
another one
Huawei.
that you could not. There were like lines out the door to get in.
They wouldn't let them in. There was a lot of yelling and pushing. It was funny.
It's nasty out there.
Well, not like I was expecting. Let's put it that way. I kept my temper, okay? And there were a few others that I know by name who did not. So.
Okay. One of the things that had come up too was that some of these older names were being sort of resurfaced by some of the brands, and what's going on there?
Okay, you got Moto, the brand that is Lenovo of China. Okay. And they picked up the Motorola brand and they call it Moto, and they're adding all these mods.
Yeah.
And so they had a couple of new phones. These are the low price phones.
Right.
But the mods are expensive, and they're even talking about putting a mod on there that will let you print out on a piece of paper what you had on your screen or any image in your storage.
Why would you want to do that?
Well, I think they're trying.
Here's a picture of my screen. Is it just another one of these things that they're trying to do incremental to make it, something that they can sell? They can use.
Oh,
it to
absolutely,
sell?
Absolutely. But it's cool. But you're exactly right. What's the audience? What's the market?
Yeah.
And then they have a lot of really cool stuff like a better camera and better sound, and modular. Then there was we mentioned already. BlackBerry.
I was
their
gonna ask
TLC
about that.
is their licensee, Chinese, and they came out with a Key One. I'm sorry, I can't remember it. But it's a long, narrow phone with a beautiful touchscreen with 52 keys down at the bottom.
Those must be really small keys, though.
Well, they claim they're not any smaller than they ever were in the past. But I tried it. Okay, I'm never going to be the guy who thumbs, with both thumbs. I'm going to always be hunting and pecking with one finger, and even when it's on touchscreen. I mean, I just am not that fast, and I'm slower than you think. Anyways, I called them crammed. I mean, and everyone else around said, "Oh no, they're not crammed." It's like I'm going, "Yeah, but you're selling this."
Right. Well, of course they're going to say that. Well, I mean, so what kind of reaction did it get? Was the reaction like, "This is BlackBerry just trying to be BlackBerry again and trying to"?
Yeah. No, I'm not
press?
sure what their long-term play is. I do think they know that they have 65 million customers around the world, and a bunch of those people love a physical keyboard.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're still with BlackBerry, I presume.
Yeah. Well, BlackBerry's got Android now as an OS, but this is an Android phone. But it's they are they have all that security that they've layered on over the years. Yeah. Not so much the exacts, like QNX is not part of it. It's not their OS, but they're the engineers that have done all the security for these years and years in Waterloo are the ones that are working on this. So you can make the sale to the enterprise customer or the government customer.
Got it.
That this is a high-quality phone, and you have these 50-year-old guys that are thumbing, or whatever they're doing.
Young kids.
No, I have lots of friends that are much younger than me that love a physical keyboard. It's not lots, but it's some. And, this is, I think it's a questionable market, but it is a small
given
market.
where the rest of the market has gotten, it sounds like what you're saying was something like the BlackBerry is that it has, a smaller market share, obviously, but they're very devoted fans for this device.
Yeah, the other third one that was the old timer trying to live a new life was HMD is making a Nokia phone, a 3, 5, and 6.
Was that the one in the colors, the yellow, red, and there were like some bold colors with that one?
They are all talking about colors.
Okay. Again, you got to sell something,
so
right?
Huawei went on for 15 minutes about the color green, and I think they lost a few of the reporters.
Okay. I like green as much as any other color.
No, it's a kind of lime. It's that chartreuse, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah. I don't like that.
I'm not sure this is. Yeah, it's. But you know, they all try a new thing, and
Right.
and I would say that the camera is more important than the color, but because a lot of people put a cover on their phone and they never see the color. But
Yep. Where's my phone? I've
You got a
it somewhere
question
around
in
Got
the
a
here.
question
audience.
back
Yes.
here.
Okay.
What were your thoughts on the phones from Nokia and BlackBerry? Do they have a shot, or is it just a retro nostalgia thing?
oh well,
You
I mean
kinda
that's
answered.
kind of the ultimate. Yeah, I haven't really. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Nokia. I mean, I don't know what their long-term plan is. But there's no question there are buyers in the $200 range, 200 to 300, or even 159, that you know, starter phones.
Right.
And I'm not for BlackBerry, of course, but BlackBerry's phone, by the way, is a high-end phone. That is a high-end phone. So the Moto and the Nokias are lower cost.
Lower end, and it sounds like one of the things that they're trying to do to stand out is sort of do this kind of retro future thing. So it's, you know, it's hard to believe that
Well, a brand is
that
so
10 years ago would be retro now. But
yeah, but a brand is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can walk into a store or look on a website and you say, "Oh, I've heard of that brand," I mean, it's like that's bringing the customer a lot further along. I mean, let's face it. So much of this tech is about the marketing, and you know the
Yeah.
brand is so much behind that.
right, because obviously many of the phones have basically the same chip, the same camera,
Well,
the
I
same
mean,
screen.
yeah. I mean, I love my phone. I mean, I can email on it, I can browse on it, I can call on it.
What do you, our mobile wireless expert, have for a phone? I should ask that.
You would ask. Now I have the Apple iPhone 7, but not the Plus.
Okay.
And I got that kind of after talking to you a little bit because you
Oh,
were kind of
wow.
leading the way. No, it's so much bigger than the 5 I had.
Yeah.
That it's noticeably different in size. Not so much bigger, but it's enough that it's really helping me with, you know, typing, for example.
Right.
I mean, I really hate the fact that they took out the jack, but I'm kind of adapting to it. I can't power up my phone at the same time I'm listening to my music.
Right. Okay.
Horrible. I
Okay.
mean, you know, I could get the wireless.
You got to
ones.
get the wireless earbuds.
I mean,
or
what is it,
whatever.
159
AirPods.
or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's-
Okay. So, and one other phone that I wanted to ask about was the LG G6, I think.
Yeah.
That was that the one it's longer? It's got a big screen.
Aspect ratio is 18:9, and they're saying this is what a lot of the new filmmakers are using for their aspect ratio. So they were going on and on about that, and it's like I'm going, well, if I'm really that into movies, I don't think I'm going to use my phone to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I don't
If
mean
you're on
to
a plane, you might. But,
yeah,
or
no, I've
traveling.
watched entire movies on my phone, which is, you know, can be costly unless you're on Wi-Fi. But I think that it's a beautiful phone, and I know Barb Krasnoff on our staff did a hands-on review where she kind of liked that
Yep.
size, and
Yep.
so size matters. It really does, and a lot of people still in the U.S. people go to the store. I mean,
Right.
this is.
they want to try it out. They need
And-
to feel the phone and see how it
I
really
mean,
works. And
they have a lot of online buyers, but you know, there's really no other market in the world where the carriers have so much control as they do here.
as in the U.S. Okay. Moving on, sort of shifting gears a little bit. You know, one of the things that also seemed to come up a lot at MWC this year was the move towards smart cities. You
Yeah.
know, I know that you've obviously done a lot of work on this. You've been to Montreal. You've been to New York. You've done was it Seoul?
Singapore.
Singapore. Thank you. Sorry.
It's all right.
You also did something on Barcelona. And it's interesting because this too seems like one of those things that's kind of constantly evolving in little places, you know, in discrete places rather than kind of universally. So what's going on? Did Smart Cities come up at
Oh, yeah, they had
MWC?
5 conference sessions on it, which is the conference sessions at Mobile World Congress are really vetted and they're good. I mean, you really get some meat out of them. And I saw one where there was the deputy CIO or the CIO from Barcelona. There was one from a deputy CIO from Moscow. I mean, a couple other cities were in there. Dublin, Ireland was in there. And they were, you know, it was like what we love to do at Computer World is talk to the actual managers that are going to implement the technology, you know,
Yeah.
instead of the vendors. And no thing against the vendors, but they were, you know, they all admitted it's been very slow going to get governments along. I mean, their own governments, you know.
Do you think it's because, you know, it's difficult for people to understand what a smart city is, how it can save
Yeah.
a city money? I mean, you know, you've written or talked extensively about like the, you know, you've got the light poles with fixtures and
Yeah.
things that can sort of
Yeah.
dictate when the lights come on and off, and you can turn them on when people are around or cars are around, but turn them off and save money.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if it would be helpful to people. Let's explain what a smart city is.
Yeah, no, it's a
Just
great question.
101.
All these city governments are devoting attention to new technology with sensors that's made available over cheaper wireless networks, and 5G is going to help them in that regard. But some sensors don't need that fast a speed. They can go back to the 2G. And anyway, the sensors are kind of the secret. They're kind of secret sauce. I mean, you can get a sensor, you know, a little chip is $5, $150 to put it on your lamppost, but it could be a video sensor, it could be a real camera, or something that just measures movement, you know, visually, not by wireless. And it could be just a, you know, Bluetooth sensor. It could be, then there are sensors that are doing all sorts of things, like measuring air pollution, measuring noise, measuring gunshot sounds. New York City's doing that.
Really?
Yeah, and it is proven to these cops that this is helping respond to crimes. A lot of people will hear a gunshot and not know it's a gunshot.
They'll think it's a backfire or something like that.
and so Los Angeles is talking about putting 1 every 10 blocks on the light poles that they've already upgraded. So
to listen out for gunshots?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is just enough spacing out that they could take the data and pass it on to the cops. And it might mean the difference of 3 minutes to get to the scene, or
which could be critical if someone's been shot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's their rationale. They're just thinking about it. It's not there yet. I mean, you know, people are doing stuff with technology in these cities that's beyond just the sensors. Moscow has, for example, really exciting thing where they're using machine learning to let a computer decide the difference between a photograph, a CT scan of a lung that has lung cancer versus a healthy one. And they've reached a 97% accuracy rate with that.
Wow.
And then so what they won't do, they won't use the computer to check for lung cancer. They'll use it as a tip.
Way to filter out the real.
Well, and they might be working with young doctors that need some sort of other, you know, second opinion. I mean, you know, you're not going to go right into surgery if you're diagnosed with lung cancer. You're going to look into it more deeply. But, you know, that's very exciting. I mean, of course, in that city, they run the clinics. There's 500 clinics, so they've come up with a technique that's going to save them costs. They've done all sorts of stuff there. They have 160,000 cameras focused on the public.
Well, it is Moscow. You know, they do want to know what people are doing. But I'm not so sure that that's different from what's really happening around here as more and more
we
of these
have no
sensors.
idea because we're being watched. But, I mean, it's like my phone is, you know, I mean.
Wait, let me put on my paranoid hat here. You know, we get the paranoid hat.
So it's so true. I mean, London, 5 years ago, there was a major reaction to that, but you go to London today, nobody talks about it. Right. So, and they have a lot of cameras.
It becomes part of the background after a while.
I mean, if you can do like they did in Boston and found 2 bombers at the marathon by using video, aren't you going to say, wow, I'm all for it?
This is a good thing.
The city of Atlanta has that reaction. I've been kind of looking at the political sort of social side of smart cities. And a big thing that's happening, you know, in addition to Atlanta, I was trying to say, they want the cameras. You know, the citizens groups have come forward. So, I mean, I don't know how many they're going to have.
You mean they want them for protection, or that they feel that
in crime areas?
It bolsters public safety.
Yeah. And in Moscow, they've been giving tickets, but they've also been checking up on, like, are the crews picking up the trash? I mean, is the park?
Isn't it also, too, that, you know, some of these sensors can help with traffic flow?
Oh, yeah. So in Montreal, we found that they're putting in more buses and more bus lanes, but they're also slowing down. They're giving a green light to the bus, so it's real time, and they're going to have all these measurements that say, okay, we're mounting up traffic on this avenue. Let's give more priority to the buses. New York's testing. I think a lot of cities have been testing it. The difference is that they're using cheaper sensors. Sometimes they don't have to upgrade their whole network to do this. So, you know, they're trying to come up with sort of a universal node that sits on a pole that can be expanded with all sorts of different sensors.
Is that part of the issue too? Is that there are so many different types of sensors and ways of implementing them that there's no real standardization right now, and therefore you've got different cities trying something with crime, something with traffic, something with the health issues in Moscow or pollution. And so you've got all this experimentation, but in terms of something that's actually going to roll out to multiple cities and do lots of things at the same time, that sounds like that's a long ways down the road.
Well, and I mean, cities fight for themselves. They're doing this to say, oh, I've got an economic advantage by having a better, higher tech community. I mean, so they're fighting against each other in a way. There are consortiums, and they do share information, and that's kind of coming up. But it has been slow. And I think we're just kind of like with a lot of things at Computer World, we're like 2 years ahead when we're writing about it, because it's going to catch on, but it isn't going to be like the United States is going to have every city be a smart city. But that's what they're trying to do in Russia. Actually, they're trying to bring every other city up to the level of Moscow.
Okay.
Interesting.
So it's sort of thing that maybe, we definitely want to keep our eye on it. I know you'll be keeping your eyes on it. Anything else, before we wrap up from MWC that we should think about or that people should be aware of in terms of, what may be coming over the next year or two in terms of mobile, or have we covered it?
Well, we've covered a lot. There were a few companies that were showing off security you can put on your home devices to keep them from being listened to.
Okay. Well, especially given the word this week, maybe I need something for my TV.
So that's how that's why we're getting the headlines. We go to the show, 10 days later, there's a headline that hits. So.
Okay, great. All right. Well, wow, that is a lot to take in. But Matt, thank you so much for stopping by for Mobile World Congress, and we'll have you back probably before the next show.
Yeah, very good.
I hope so.
I look forward to it.
And no further questions from the audience, as best we can tell. So on that note, we'll call it a day. That's a wrap.